Thanks for joining me as we're looking at Romans chapter 8, verse 5 as part of our memory challenge. Romans 8:5 says, "For those live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit." So we need to go back to verse 4, and at the end of verse 4, Paul gives a description of believers. Believers are those who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So the righteous requirement of the law has been fulfilled for us by Christ. Then Christ gives us the Holy Spirit, so now we walk in the Spirit and not the flesh. So we walk, we live by the Spirit's empowerment and His leading. So why is that? Well, that's verse 5. So now verse 5 through verse 13, Paul is going to contrast flesh and spirit because they are opposed. This is very, very similar to and fitting with what Paul says in chapter 5 about Adam and Christ. Again, back in chapter 5, Paul will say you're either in Adam, meaning you're an unbeliever, you're under his domain, or you're under Christ by faith and under his rule. So it's Adam versus Christ. Here it's flesh versus spirit. Flesh goes with Adam, spirit goes with Christ. Again, these are two different and opposing realms, spirit and flesh. There is, for Paul, no overlap. Christians now are in the realm of the spirit. They're not part of the spirit realm and part of the flesh realm. Okay? Now, it is true that Paul does talk elsewhere about this kind of battle that goes on between the flesh and the spirit, and he will allude to that in verse 13 here of chapter 8. Probably more famously, Paul talks about this in Galatians chapter 5. So there is this struggle. But Paul's point here is that positionally and spiritually, we are in the realm of the Spirit. We have been transferred from the flesh and that realm to the realm of the Spirit. So Paul here is just being descriptive. He's not really exhorting or, again, talking about the struggle. He's just being descriptive of this realm we're in. And this description, as detailing God's work of grace, is to encourage us. It ought to embolden us. In fact, Jon Campbell, in his commentary, says this, that Paul is writing here to strengthen believers by consolation, adapted to their case, that they, from a consciousness of their infirmities, might not faint or despond. He goes on, his plan is to inspire believers with good hope, that though yet they continue bound to their flesh. Even though we're still in these fleshly bodies, and we still got this battle against the flesh, yet we can be encouraged because positionally, spiritually, we are in the realm of the Spirit. And what does the Spirit use, and what does the flesh use for the works? Well, this is what Paul highlights here. It's the setting the mind. So you can set your mind on things of the flesh or things of the Spirit. But again, because of the work of the Spirit, we set our mind on the things of the Spirit. So this is a mindset that Paul here is referring to. This refers to how we reason and think about things, how we understand things of the world, and our affections. And again, it's because of God's grace in salvation that we are now in the realm of spirit. And the Spirit has brought about a whole new mindset for us, a whole new way of thinking, desires, affections, plans, and goals. And this is why we feel a lot of times at odds with this world, the way it thinks and functions and things that it desires. So Spirit has put us in the way, in the will, and in the wisdom of God. Now, none of this in verse 5 is really directed to you as far as what you are to do, but again, as we saw from Jon Campbell, you are to be encouraged, and you are to be aware of this opposition that goes on. Two realms. If you're an unbeliever in the flesh, if you're a believer, you are in the realm of the Spirit. And so you are under his rule. It's a whole new way of living. And so this is to be a great encouragement to us as we continue to do battle against sin and the flesh. God's grace has put us in the realm of the Spirit. Thank you.